Hello there, fellow zombie slayers. My name is Stanley557, and here is Shieldless, a series where I complete every single Easter egg in Black Ops 3 and 4 without a shield. This concept has come from the common criticism in BO3, and especially in BO4, about how essential the shield is to the game ever since it was introduced to Transit in Black Ops 2. In each episode, I'm going to be completing a main Easter egg without the shield. The key question I'm asking here is not if it's possible, but rather how difficult it is, and my thoughts on the Easter egg afterward. For the challenge, there's only really 3 restrictions. I can't build the shield during the Easter egg. I can't use ultra rare mega gobble gums or elixirs. This includes gums like Perkaholic, Shopping Free, Raindrops, Near Death, etc. And every Easter egg must be beaten in solo for consistency's sake. Other than that, everything else is fair game. I feel that anything the game offers to you should be used to its fullest extent as the developers intended. The exceptions are ultra rare mega gobble gums because they break the game. Also, every map will be rated on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being super easy and 10 being super difficult. With that out of the way, let's begin.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Instead, the whole thing's been one disaster after another. Eat my blade, beast! Ka fucking boom, maggot addicts! Today, you die! 4, 3. First I took your legs, now I take your life! I should never have trusted you, Richtofen. Never.
So, let's quickly start out with the rating. I'd give the map about a 4 out of 10. Almost like Shadows, I was able to complete the egg in relatively very few tries. Shadows only took 1 attempt, whereas Eisendrache took 2, but more on that later. The gobblegums I ran were Extra Credit, Cashback, Fatal Contraption, Alchemical Antithesis, and Unquenchable. The egg has 6 major steps: getting the bow, upgrading it, bringing the rocket back from space, filling the summoned keeper, the boss fight, and the endgame. Once I spawned in, I collected the tram fuse, which was never going to be used by the way, turned on the launch pad, and collected the free 100 points from Quick Revive. I then proceeded to finish round 1 as I usually do, collect the 100 points from Double Tap, and make my way to the first dragon. Now, each dragon requires 7 souls, 1 to activate it, and another 6 to fill it up. While in this area, I instinctively picked up the shield part. Now, I don't know what came over me, other than just muscle memory. Once the zombies shambled their way in, I was able to begin filling up the dragon when this happened. A double points and an insta-kill spawned on top of each other. Okay, look, I know this isn't exactly the rarest occurrence or, major news, but I've only ever seen it happen a couple of times over the past 8 years, so the fact that I caught it on video was pretty cool. I then used my extra credit and double points to get myself 10,000 points. We don't have Shopping Free, but boy are there other options. After filling the first dragon, I knocked down the Panzer Claw and made my way toward the power switch. With all the money in hand, I was able to break all the early game progression in a matter of 2 minutes. I was able to buy the HVK, which later turned out to be a mistake by the way, open up the church, and the teleporter room. While in the Bastion, I activated the Wounded Sphere pad and found the second shield part. This shield part would sit there for the rest of eternity because it is an invention that should be damned to all of hell. Soon, work began on the second dragon, and after completing it, I rushed down to the boat room to observe this cute little animation whenever you complete a dragon head. It's always the little details that count in these games. Inside the Undercroft, I began the anti-gravity process until I realized you don't actually need these panels other than if you're upgrading the lightning bow, because all the anti-grav does is give you the shield part and a BRM wall buy. So, I kept it be. While inside the teleporter room, I also grabbed the plant, because, is it useful? Not really, but it can give us any gobblegum we want once we plant it. Do you know what it'll give us? Answer down below. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. While filling up the third dragon, I also collected Jug. Once I completed the bow, I pondered which upgrade I should get. For originality's sake, I picked Fire. Now imagine that I picked Fire for a challenge run. There's nothing wrong with Fire. It's actually my favorite bow to upgrade. But I'm also not an idiot. Lightning is clearly the best. The first step of the upgrade is firing at these pylons. There are 2 you can hit by double tap, and you can actually hit the one by the rocket pad without actually teleporting down there, with this simple glitching queen trick. Run down to the lower floor by double tap, and look at this hand on the railing. Now, aim your crosshairs upward until they align with the little circular cloud up in the air. Fire an uncharged shot, and it'll work every time. Now, for the one that is all the way out there, what you'll want to do is, you'll want to align your crosshairs with the side of the mountain and fire a charge shot. Of course, all that was left was a super easy one by the clock tower. This should take 1 try, very easy. And then I definitely got it on the first try. Next was the wall run process, which is a very easy step. Now, we can work on the electrical pots. I started by the one above double tap, and the process began. After filling it up with 5 souls, I could hold the charge shot and aim it at the pylon off in the distance. I'm so cool, I got it on the first try. And then I got it on the first, teleporting to the launch pad. I filled the next pot, and prepared to fire the charge shot at the pylon. Realizing there was only 1 zombie left, I decided to wait for the rocket test to go off. I swear, sometimes the rocket test happens almost instantly, and other times, you're waiting there for the full 8 minutes. It's crazy. Once the rocket test went off, I flipped the switch to the Ragnarok part, and utilized the extra zombies for the electrical pot. Then, I fired a well-aimed shot, and launched myself back to the map to finish the bow. So far, there hasn't really been a single issue with the egg, besides the likely stupidity that affects me every map at some point. The final pot was in the clock tower, and no issues occurred. A quick and simple process. All that was left was to lift the electrical cloud and collect my refined arrow. Taking the arrow down to the undercroft, I worked on finishing the bow by filling it with zombie souls. Once complete, I left the bow in its holder so I could finally begin the Easter egg. Taking back the unupgraded bow, I went into the teleporter room and fired a charge shot at the teleporter. This step I've always found weird. You have to shoot these random orbs on top of a teleporter with an unupgraded bow. Once you have an upgraded bow, you summon Wisp. You can attack with the upgraded bow to modify the teleporter so you can go back in time. Zombies, man, I swear. Because I'm clearly the best player ever, I fired my 1 charge shot at the teleporter, and it activated every single teleporter orb, beginning the Wisp step. I know. Praise me. Now, this step requires you to run around the map and look for an electrical wisp at 1 out of 8 locations. Once you hit a wisp with your upgraded bow, you'll hear this sound, indicating you can go find the next wisp. Once you hit 4 wisps, I made my way back to the teleporter room to go back for the first time. While back in time, you have to perform a few tasks, like collecting the canister 115, gathering the fuses hidden on this box, placing the plant down, and checking the code left behind by Groff. Once you return from going back in time, I destroyed the Panzer for the Ragnarok part, and I made my way to the Bastion. While there, I placed the fuses inside the Death Ray, and then I forgot to switch the machine to Protect. So, when I entered the code in, this step had failed, and I was completely confused as to what had happened. So then I had to go another round of shooting Wisp, and going back in time. When I went back in time to get a new code, I had to recollect the fuses for the Death Ray, but I didn't have to recollect the canister 115 for the MPD. Weird stuff. After returning and taking out another Panzer, I placed the fuses back into the Death Ray, and I made sure to turn to Protect this time while entering in the code. What a dumb waste of time. I then made my way back into the lab, and found the keycard and the metal pylons needed for the Death Ray. After entering in the pylons and setting the Death Ray to destroy, we can now begin the Simon Says step. Yay! Sadly, or thankfully, take your pick, I ended the round and had to go through another round of Wisp collecting. This time, I had to go back in time for the 3rd time in a row, but it was the last time we have to do so. Now, a common misconception is that interacting with the Chronorium opens up this box across the room that gives us the stone tablet for the Keeper step. That's wrong. You actually have to insert the keycard we got from the safe earlier into this machine. You can even see the model updating when interacting with it. It just so happens to be that the Chronorium is right next to it. Anywho, after traveling back, I destroyed the 3rd Panzer and collected the Panzer helmet. This turned out to be absolutely useless, and a waste of time. Go me. I then returned to the rocket, and began the Simon Says step. This step varies in multiplayer and in solo, because in multiplayer, the players will get attacked by dogs, making the step a little harder, but on solo, it's just you and the zombies. After finishing the first set of Simon Says computers, I returned to the Bastion to complete the 2nd set. I accidentally started the new round, but as it turns out, the lightning bow is overpowered. Who would have thought? Finally, I activated the Death Ray, and rocket retrieval successful. The next step required the Golden Rod, and without any hesitation, I started the Keeper quest. The Keeper step, in solo, is very easy. Just fill up the Keeper with about a full round of zombies and he'll move on to the next location. While I jump between some footage, I wanted to share a little fun fact. If you do the Easter egg on local play, or on a non-ranked online match, you'll have to upgrade each bow and fill the Keeper with a different bow. And if you're playing in multiplayer, then you'll have to use a different amount of bows for each player in the game. Just an interesting little fact. And weird how the non-ranked function only affects this Easter egg, but I guess that's because of the ability for players to join in mid-match. It must just be a failsafe. Interesting to say the least. While filling up the 2nd circle, I did have this close call, and I remember my heart absolutely pumping at 1,000,000 miles an hour. In multiplayer, you'll get a Panzer on the 3rd and 4th circle, whereas in solo, he only appears on the last one. After finishing the final circle, the Keeper teleports to the moon to throw hands with Groff and bring back the MPD. A fun little story fact is that the Keeper becomes corrupted, not by Groff, but by coming into contact with the MPD, in the same way that Ultimus Richtofen's mind was altered once he interacted with it in the beginning of the story. I took this time to build the Ragnaroks too. Once the Keeper had returned, I placed the canister into the MPD, and he revealed himself to become an Apothicon. See, you know he's an Apothicon, because of the sick hood he's got on now. And so started the process to get Widow's Wine too. Sadly, Widow's Wine is only in Wunderfizz, and a pretty rare one at that too. I had to chase the machine down for a few rounds before I finally got it. Collecting Fatal Contraption and Widow's Wine, I prepared for the boss fight. I threw down my Ragnaroks, and the fight began. The first phase went about as expected. I avoided the flame pillars, kept my distance from the skeletons, and made sure to be ready for the Apothicon. The issue came from the Panzers in the mid-tro phase, and as it turns out, Death Machine was not melting them as easy as I'd hoped for. I then went down due to a lack of movement and the Panzer stun grenades. Knowing the run was dead, I reset to try again. Okay, so now I'll explain how the reset process is going to work for this series. If I go down in a run, I'll make any subsequent run part of a highlight reel until we get back to the step I failed on. I'm not really going to retread what I've already done. But anyways, let's move on to run 2. The primary difference between this run and the previous run was the addition of Idolize and the removal of Fatal Contraption, as I found the bows to do enough damage to the Panzers already. While back in the church, I activated the Disco Easter egg, because why not? Dance break!
Anyone else want a slice of the action?
While at the rocket pad, I realized I never activated the Wunder Spear pad at spawn. I don't know how that happened, I've always activated the pad. Shooting the orbs in the teleporter room went a lot worse, and I made sure to set the death rate to protect and do it right the first time around. Oh, another key distinction between this run and the last is that I pack-a-punched the MR6s. I found them to be very useful at attacking the Apothicon in the boss fight. Rip this max ammo. I got a lucky rocket test after teleporting, and after summoning the Keeper, he went around the whole map to get stuck on this one door by spawn. Riveting! I also almost went down here yet again in the courtyard circle. Seriously, what is it with me in that area? Got way luckier getting Widow's Wine, and finally, I made my way back into the boss fight. Idolize proved to be much more useful than the Death Machines, and the Panzers didn't even know what hit them. And Death and Taxes were extremely useful against the Apothicon, making even his third phase a one cycle, which is so much harder to do with the bows. Now, a weird thing I noticed was that I didn't have filled Ragnaroks after the first Panzer phase. That's never happened before, so I had to wait another cycle to fill them up. Thankfully, the Panzers on phase 2 were much nicer at filling up my Ragnaroks. After the final phase, the Apothicon had been purified, and we charged the summoning key to initiate the endgame. With the launch of the rockets, the egg had been completed, and that was Eisendrache Shieldless. Again, I crafted the shield in celebration, and it immediately got me killed. Woo! Well, that was the Easter egg Shieldless. But how did I do? In conclusion, this only took me 2 attempts to do, so that's why I rated the map about a 4 out of 10, because it was slightly harder than Shadows, but that was only really because it had a competent boss fight that proved a challenge, and required me to think a little bit more outside the box with my pay-to-win Gobblegums. Other than that, the Lightning Bow made the challenge extremely easy, and it would have been definitely harder without it. So, if you wanted to try this and you wanted to switch things up, I would really recommend using the other bows. Void and Fire are very useful. I'd say the only really bad one is the Wolf Bow, but they're all still really good in their own right. Well, thank you for watching episode 2 of Shieldless. If you have any thoughts or comments, leave them in the comment section below. I would truly appreciate any criticism you can offer me, as it allows me to keep making these videos the best they can be. Thank you for watching, and remember, keep on slaying.
We don't need the moon, right? Nothing bad could come from that.
The road is long and dark, but I know where we are going. We will complete our mission.